Okay, well that's the dyno session done, and it's quite an interesting result. Hello guys, and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now in the last video on Project Cupra, you may have noticed that on track, for a car with just 280 horsepower, it found it suspiciously easy to keep up with a brand new 400 horsepower Audi RS3, which got me thinking, could it possibly have been remapped? Well, today we're going to find out for sure by running it up on the development dyno here at top of Volkswagen Group Tuners Racingline in Milton Keynes. And when we've done that, we're going to try and extract even more performance out of it by fitting their ever popular R600 air intake. On this piece of paper, I've written exactly how much horsepower I think it's producing, and later in the video we'll compare that with the actual figure. If you want to play along, just pick a number between, I don't know, 250 and 400 and we'll see who's closest. Right, let's get it on the dyno. Okay, I'm with Matt Ellis, who's a technical sales manager here at Racingline, and he's going to explain what we're going to see if the car has been remapped.
Okay, yes, so what we will do is we'll look to see whether it's made more power than stock, and then also based on what you've told me already, you say that the power comes in quite late, feels like it's very linear from 4,000 RPM onwards, not much from there. So we'll do the power run, see where the peak power is, but at the same time I'm also going to log the vehicle, see how much boost it's making, how much timing is added, how much fuel's been added, torque, things like that, just to make sure that everything's running safely and we're happy with what's going on.
Yeah, because not all remaps are the same, and if it's a bad map, driving it on track in particular, where it's under a lot of load, could eventually cause the engine to fail. So we just, as well as kind of working out how much performance is actually being given, we're going to just make sure it's a safe map as well. So they're kind of a bit contradictory. The more power, the more risk.
Yeah, technically more power, more risk, but also it's how that power is delivered as well. So if you have lots and lots of boost, slow down, lots of torque, obviously you run the risk of premature turbo failure, which is quite common on these standardised 30s, even in the standard guys, sometimes the turbos blow up. So that's another thing that we'll be looking out for as well, and how much boost is being given over the whole entire rev range. So you might make a peak of, let's say, 1.8 bar, but if it starts trailing off down to 1.3, 1.4 at the top end, it's slightly better than what it would be if it was 1.8 the whole entire way.
I've seen the rev limiter quite a lot, so it doesn't seem to drop off too much, but it comes in quite late. It's front wheel drive, and therefore there's a limit to how much it can take, but the map seems to be pushing the power at the top end, which on track's perfect because you're never sort of below 4,000 RPM. Anyway, enough chat. Let's see what the car can do.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well that's the dyno session done, and it's quite an interesting result. Let Matt explain, how did you find it?
So we dynoed the car, you can see the dyno graph in the background there, and it made 299 horsepower, 380 newton meters of torque, which is exactly what we would expect. Prior to logging the car and running the car, as I was explaining to you, I checked the advanced ID with VCDS. Some of the car had never been flashed before because all the counters were 1. As a result, still logged the car anyway because you never know. Car made exactly the power that we would expect it to make, and the logs are perfect, as you can see here. We've got the logs on the screen if you want to have a look at those.
Great. So it's a totally standard car, which, well, when I first drove it, I was a bit reluctant to commit to whether I felt it was mapped or standard, because adapting from a 320 horsepower Club Sport, that's how it dynoed here, with DSG, it's very hard to compare it. So I thought I'd drive it on track, and the RS3 experience on the straights seemed too good to be true for a standard car. But we've talked about power to weight ratio, manual gearbox, no DSG, so it's lighter, 3-door, and it's an old, well, the newer cars are not necessarily heavier, the new generation.
No, not necessarily, but the other thing you need to bear in mind with that as well, no rear diff, no prop shaft, obviously much lighter at the rear as well, and overall it's and a smaller car, no boot.
That's true.
The RS3 would be in the saloon.
It was, actually.
Yeah, so then you've got the extra weight at the rear there as well. So yeah, those are your advantages over.
So the power to weight ratio is probably closer than you might think, but the RS3 was still getting away, and that kind of represents a performance advantage over this car, but not a massive one, not probably as much as you expect for £70,000 versus 12. So yeah, anyway, Matt's going to show us the plots.
Okay, so you can see here I just have the boost log up. So the blue line is the specified charge air pressure, and the orange line is the actual. As you can see, they track quite well. They'll never ever be one-to-one, just for the nature of physics. However, you can see here we've got some of the values. So 1.9 specified, 1.9 actual. That is in bar. However, you do need to take atmospheric pressure away from that, which would be 980, so you're looking at roughly 900 millibar of boost standard. That does slowly creep up the higher you go in the rev range, so you're looking around 1 bar of boost at any given time, and then up to about 1.1 near the top, and then naturally as they do, they trail off with more heat. So that is exactly what a standard boost log would look like. We've also checked all of the fuel, and we've also checked ignition angles as well, and everything is fine there. There's nothing to be concerned about, no worries really.
Okay. Should we get the R600 on now then and see if we can eke out a little bit more power out of it?
Yeah, we shall see. Typically, we expect to see around a 10 horsepower gain on a stage 1 car, higher against stage 2, higher against stage 3, because it's all relative to the amount of boost that we'll be running. However, on a stock car, we do tend to see around 5 horsepower and a little bit of a Newton meter torque gain as well. So we'll put it on and see how we go. Okay,
every little helps. Okay, before I forget, the figure on my card was 350 horsepower, so I was some way out, but hey, it might be a bit closer once the R600 is fitted. Okay, that's the R600 dyno run done, and I've actually got no idea if we made any more power, so over to Matt.
Yeah, so we made 6 horsepower over stock and 6 Newton meters over stock as well. So the original was 299 and now we're on 385 horsepower, and the original was 383 and now we're on 389 Newton meters at all.
Okay, so, you know, a worthwhile improvement, definitely. But if you have a stage 2 or 3 or
stage 2 or 3, or even from stage 1, stage 1 we'd expect to see 10 to 15 horsepower over a stock intake. Stage 2, again, it's relative to how much boost you run. In stage 3, in some instances, we're seeing over 30 horsepower compared to other manufacturers' intakes. So.
Brilliant. And did you say earlier that the software on this car is identical to Golf R?
Yes, so each ECU, or each car, should I say, has varying software numbers. That's how they're identified.
Is that the fourth letter of the engine code?
It's not the fourth letter of the engine code. No, it's actually in the ECU. So you can only really see this if you have VCDS or another flashing tool or a tuning tool. So the Golf R's and Cupras share very similar ECU codes. Some of them are individual to Cupras. For example, Cupra R has its own code. Club Sport, like your A Club Sport and the 7 Clubs, will have their own code. But this one here shares it with the Golf R, so it's the same as the 2016 Golf R.
Does that mean the software is exactly the same?
The software is exactly
so
the same.
So it runs the same.
Identical.
So it should be producing the same power.
Same power. That's exactly what I'd expect to see out of the 2016 Golf R.
Yeah, which brings us to the key point. This car is actually a 280, as it says there, but we're getting 299 bhp. That'll be 280 PS on the back. Yes. So we're already sort of 24 metric horsepower above standard with a perfectly, well, it had a pipe across air filter in before, panel filter. So there was a little tweak, but even with that, the R600 has taken us even further up the ladder. So yeah, an impressive performance for a perfectly standard car. I didn't know, I would never have thought that a two-wheel drive Cupra would have exactly the same software as a Golf R.
And typically the Cupras do have slightly different. I know this is a sub 8, is it?
No, it's just a normal.
It's a sub 8.
Yeah.
Right, okay. But even so, yeah, I mean, for it to be making the same sort of power is good. And like I said, normally a Cupra would have a separate number. This one has the Golf R software in it, which it's come from factory. As we can see, it's not been played around with or anything. There's no flash counters or any changes. So
yeah, so that's good news for reliability. So yeah, that's I'm a little bit confused because I could have sworn it was it felt just so potent at the top end it couldn't be stock, but then when you know it's Golf R software in a much lighter package, it kind of all makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and no one's the reliability side of things. Obviously, if you're doing a lot of track with this as well, then the next thing you're going to want to look at would be our oil management system.
Yes. What happens if you don't have one?
Lots of bad things happen if you don't have one.
Oh, no.
It's all over the internet. You'll see clouds and plumes of smoke coming out the back of Golf R's, Cupras, GTIs, Octavias, everything. You'll see it a lot of our advertising as well. We will show that it's actually a Cupra on advertising, huge plumes of smoke coming out the back. Essentially what happens is under heavy braking, the standard PCV doesn't deal with the oil surge that comes out of the head very well. It's like a vortex system, so it doesn't drain quick enough, and as a result, when you're on real heavy braking, it will then surge and go back through into the turbo, which obviously starves your head of oil, not good. Then floods the turbo with oil, also not good, which is then obviously what causes it to go through the exhaust manifold. So always round, it's not great. And we work closely with Volkswagen Motorsport on this, and that's also the system that run on their TCR cars as well. So impressive. They use the exact same thing. So
if I'm going to upgrade the brakes, which is literally the next modification,
yeah, then oil management system wants to be very, very closely behind.
Right. Well, yeah, prevention is better than cure, so yeah, that's definitely, I mean, they're both relatively easy to fit for DIYs, aren't they? So.
Yeah, really easy, yeah, it's not a problem at all, especially on this one as well, because you won't have, because it's not four-wheel drive, on the four-wheel drive you have to move,
washer bottle.
Do the remote washer bottle, whereas on the Cupra you don't have to.
Oh, that makes it a lot easier then, brilliant. Okay, well, some things to look forward to in the future, so subscribe if you haven't, and big thanks to Matt
no problem
here at Racingline once again, and I'll see you for the next video very soon.